Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, July 29th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the possibility of Senator Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's vice presidential choice. So I've heard a number of political pundits mispronounce her name. It's not Kamala, it's Kamala. I guess the second A is silent. I just remember seeing an ad for it on YouTube way back when that explained to me how to pronounce it, so just letting you know. Whatever. Moving past that. So we're talking about her addition to the Biden ticket. And the reason why we're talking about this, I'm pretty sure most of you know by now, a picture of Joe Biden's notes was taken, very similar to, I believe, the press secretary's notes that were taken in the White House. It pretty much showed us what their talking points were. And for the Biden campaign, for Senator Kamala Harris, he had "don't hold grudges," campaigned with Jill and assuming, all together. There was some discussion about whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had any bad blood, but it looks like they don't. It said that he had a lot of respect for her, and pretty much it looked like he was indicating that she would possibly be the VP choice. I mean, they're making the announcement in a week, so they're probably going to try to produce as many signs as they can in t-shirts, so they probably already know who their vice presidential nominee is going to be. And it looks like all signs are pointing towards Kamala Harris. Now, I could be wrong about this. I do have a personal reason as to why I want Kamala Harris to be the vice presidential nominee. If you remember back in my first ever Joe Biden versus Donald Trump election video, I had Senator Kamala Harris as his VP. This was July of 2017, keep in mind. So we had no real indication, but I would just say that is very, very early prediction that if it did end up coming true, I would say that is pretty cool, to say the least. But besides that, I honestly do think that she would be an amazing addition to the Biden campaign. It looks like he's going to choose a woman of color. Elizabeth Warren statistically helps him the most, but Kamala Harris, I think, optics-wise, helps him the best out of all of them. Let's take a look at what the electoral map currently looks like today. I'm not going to characterize any states really talking too much about margins. We're not going to focus on that. All of the states, I think, and how they're going to vote, I'm going to discuss. And then I'm going to talk about the states that improve with Senator Harris on the ticket. I do think a lot of states will improve. A lot of Republican states, such as Mississippi, South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana, will probably narrower than if Joe Biden had chose a white woman as VP or someone like Elizabeth Warren. But we're not going to indicate those because those states in particular, just because they're not competitive, there's no real reason for me to do so. So we're filling in the electoral map, and we're talking about where Biden can improve on with Harris on the ticket. So obviously he improves everywhere. I think he will absolutely get a bump after he announces Senator Harris as VP, but I think her help to the campaign is really going to be rooted in a number of states with a very strong African-American population or minority population in general. When we look at the Rust Belt, you don't think minority voters. The reason why the Democratic Party does well there is because they appeal to the white working class and they win those 6% of black voters in Wisconsin or 8% in Michigan. There aren't that many across all three states, so minority groups don't exactly dictate the politics in those states. They also make up a very large majority, not a majority, a very large area in the South population-wise, but they don't necessarily move the electorate to the left, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. If we're looking at the states that Kamala Harris will have a direct improvement on, I really think obviously she will improve nationwide for the Biden campaign, but I really do think that in states such as North Carolina and Georgia, we will see increased turnout, probably larger than what we would have if Joe Biden had chosen really any other candidate as his vice presidential candidate. So we're talking about Kamala Harris. Why would she be a good choice? She attacked Joe Biden a year ago, so nobody really thought that Kamala Harris would be the go-to vice presidential choice. When we think about her, first of all, she never really ran in the Democratic primary. She never reached the first contest, so she dropped out way before then. But I will say that her notable accusatory tone towards Vice President Biden on the debate stage back in June 2019, when I say June, that's something that definitely will still be in the back of the heads of many Biden supporters. A lot of people who are diehard Biden supporters from day one were in firm opposition to Kamala Harris, who have since embraced her. I really don't think any moderates will be too upset with Kamala Harris as VP. I don't think Biden's going to lose any of his current voters by choosing her as vice president. However, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him than if he chose someone like Elizabeth Warren to win over the progressive vote. With a campaign that's already been reaching out to Republican voters, it's going to be very difficult to have a progressive ideology on top of a centrist ideology on top of a Republican, centrist-leaning Republican campaign that could pretty much appeal to all of these ideologies, being able to win them all over. And it's something the Biden campaign is going to have to work really hard to do. For Kamala Harris, she's a little bit more progressive than Joe Biden. She offers a little bit more of a progressive voice in the White House than what Joe Biden originally had to offer. Elizabeth Warren would obviously be the go-to progressive candidate, except for the fact that many Bernie supporters, maybe not many, but some Bernie supporters would still be in firm opposition to Elizabeth Warren, possibly even more than Harris, just because they view Elizabeth Warren as a spoiler, which I don't necessarily think it's true. There's no data that correlates that's true either, because Michael Bloomberg was in the same race, the same amount of time as Elizabeth Warren. So besides that, a lot of people may not necessarily like Elizabeth Warren for the sense that they believe that she is the reason why Bernie Sanders did not do well following South Carolina. So, Kamala Harris, well, she also is a prosecutor. She has a pretty shaky record, I will admit that, and I won't necessarily think that she will do crazy numbers, Obama-like numbers for the black vote in this country, but she definitely will give them an advocate in the White House, someone who literally can attest to personal experiences about racism and sexism and bring her knowledge to the White House and be able to pretty much lead the Biden campaign into being, or the Biden White House into being a very progressive White House. Joe Biden was right. He would be the most progressive president elected ever if he wins in November. And I think that will definitely have to do largely with the fact that Kamala Harris could possibly be on this ticket. With her on the ticket, she will definitely improve states such as North Carolina and Georgia. These are two states with a very large African-American population. Absolutely will make a difference in these states. I honestly think that Kamala Harris will do better for Joe Biden in these Rust Belt areas. I think that it's definitely going to improve the numbers up there. I think minority voters really would like someone in the White House, Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, whoever it might be. Maybe not Elizabeth Warren, but Tammy Duckworth. A woman of color in general will obviously improve amongst minority voters just because of the personal relationship that they could have. Barack Obama won over black voters in 2008 in the Democratic primary. He was also a very good orator, so I will say that he definitely could have been a great candidate. If he had not won the black vote, he absolutely could have won over white voters as well in the Democratic primary. But I will say that Barack Obama did very, very well with in the black vote in general, not just in the Democratic primary, but in the general election, driving up turnout. In 2012, actually, black voters turned out at a larger percent rate than white voters for the first time in American history. And then when Hillary Clinton ran, yes, she was a woman, and yes, she was closely tied to the Obama administration, but she chose a white man as VP. She didn't choose Julian Castro. She didn't choose really any other candidate that could have driven up minority turnout. She chose Tim Kaine from Virginia, and that ended up with her defeat on Election Day. So Harris, I still think will improve the numbers for Biden. I do think that she offers a regional advantage in Nevada. I will say Nevada gets characterized for the Biden campaign, but also improvements from Kamala Harris, Arizona as well. I think Colorado and New Mexico are pretty much gone. Same thing with Virginia, which is why I didn't characterize it. But if we're looking at the remainder of these states, obviously Kamala Harris I still think will benefit Biden in a way, but I don't think the improvement will be too drastic, especially in these northeastern states where, the black vote is barely, right under 10%, if not lower. So it really isn't doesn't have too much of an impact on the electorate here. So we're going to actually characterize these states just how I expect them to go and where I expect Kamala Harris to improve on. I'm going to characterize Minnesota for the Democratic Party. I think she improves in, we're talking about nationwide. She definitely improves across this country. I'm going to characterize Iowa and Ohio for Donald Trump. I still think with Harris on the ticket that it's going to go to Donald Trump. And yes, I think that Biden could narrowly improve, but a lot of the vote in Iowa and Ohio is on the back of the white working class. I understand there's major cities, but the major cities made all the difference in the Rust Belt. It didn't make all the difference in Ohio. We saw a number of turns, not just lack of turnout, but also a number of voters that definitely turned over. There was a 9-point margin, 8-point margin of victory for Trump in Ohio, less than a percentage in these states. So Harris's improvement may happen in a number of these states, but it'll be minimal, and it probably won't change the overall outcome with her on the ticket. While I do think Harris will improve Biden's numbers in Texas, I think he'll improve them in Florida. But outside of these areas, I know it's a lot because she's a very good VP choice. Some people discuss whether or not that prosecutor record will hurt her. Honestly, the alternative, we have Val Demings, a former police chief. You can imagine how badly that would play. I understand that she tried to reform the police system, but some people may still raise questions about that. We talk about Karen Bass, who's pretty much super unknown nationwide. I think the recent data showed 68% of American voters had never even heard of her. We have Susan Rice, who also could be tied very closely to the Obama White House, as would Joe Biden, but baggage would be baggage on both of these candidates. But for Kamala Harris, she's a pretty much very new senator elected in 2016, rising star in the Democratic Party. She has a realistic shot at being VP, and she does help Joe Biden in a number of states. Now, this is not to say these other vice presidential candidates won't help him, but I think she would definitely do the best job. If Joe Biden was to choose a woman of color, I think Kamala Harris is the best bet. She improves his numbers in a number of states. She would be the first black vice president, and overall, I mean, she's very well known across this country. Her approval rating and disapproval rating are roughly even. I think the disapprove goes over by 2-3% nationwide, but a lot of Americans pretty much either don't have an opinion of him, approve of her, or disapprove of her. But that's expected. Biden has roughly the same approval rating and disapproval rating nationwide as well. This is a presidential election year. You're not supposed to love the candidates. Republicans aren't going to love Joe Biden. Democrats aren't going to love Donald Trump. So Kamala Harris actually performing about even and expected for a potential vice presidential choice. So she helps Biden. Again, if you skip to the end, I honestly recommend watching through the entire video because you're not going to really understand why some states are considered just safe blue and some states are considered Harris improvement states. But it's pretty much, if I'm just going to summarize it, I think that she definitely will help him in a number of states nationwide. But if they're already considered for Trump, and I don't think that her involvement in the campaign will make that much of a difference, I'm not going to move the state over. I understand Texas was as large of a margin as Iowa in 2016, but actually Texas seems to be a little bit more left-leaning than Iowa nationwide or statewide as we look at the data right now. So Harris, I think she would be a very good vice presidential choice. No, I'm not just saying that because I thought that she would be VP 3 years ago, but that will be pretty cool to say the least. But we'll see. Biden's supposed to announce sometime, I believe, next week. I know he promised August 1st, but they have since moved that back. And typically, the vice presidential nomination does not get announced until around a week before the convention. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. On your screen, there should be a video that you can go ahead and watch if you want to, and then a playlist for my 2020 election predictions. You can just go ahead and scroll through those if you'd like. Coming out with a video about that sometime soon. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider joining as a member on this channel, and I will see you all tomorrow.